This is the What's Next podcast, Houston's #1 platform where I invite creatives to share their journeys and give us a depiction of their visions. Most importantly, the last question I'll ask is, what's next? Listen, I know what I said, but it's the new year. I couldn't come back in February. I had to drop January the 4th. Happy New Year, y'all. Yeah. Houston, Texas, I've started the timer. I'm not going to be longer than 27 minutes. Welcome back to the What's Next podcast, a production of Still Visionary Inc. That's WHAT, no apostrophe S, NEXT, exclamation, question mark, a production of Still Visionary Inc. I know what you're thinking. But JR, you said you weren't going to be here because you're having a kid. I know. Two things. When you're dedicated, you will find a way. Number one. And number two, in looking for that way, sometimes you got to start. It's January 3rd, a few hours before I have to get up and go to work. And I said to myself, I can't go back to the new year and not do a podcast. That's number one. Number two, rather. Well, that's number one. Number one, when you're dedicated, you'll find a way. And number two, if you're looking to become dedicated and you have no direction, start somewhere. Start somewhere. And don't give up. Listen, man, my name is
John Ross Dyke I, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
If you would, connect with me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my fan page on Facebook, and visit my website at stillvisionary.com. Directly to my left, I have the What's Next podcast. Well, the Still Visionary Inc. exclusive t-shirt that I give to every creative that comes on the podcast. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at John Ross Dyke and Still _Visionary. Also, the What's Next pod _ Listen, Houston, Texas, the Lone Star State, the United States of America, the Western Hemisphere. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022, and it's getting realer. Before I could do this podcast tonight, I had daddy duties. I had to fix a Halo bassinet. I had to fix like this nursery diaper dispensary thing and this Fisher-Price spots and dots puppy swing. So before I could get on this podcast and give you 27 minutes, I had to do that. Right? This is a new beginning too, which is a triple entendre. Because the things that I have to say today, my goodness, I struggled with it. I struggled with what I wanted to say today. But Houston, Texas, I could not come back to the podcast in February and let 31 days of the new year go without podcast. And so here I am. I know what I said in episode 129, but charge it to my brain and not my heart. My heart is here with you. I'm dedicated. And so I wanted to podcast and basically just, tell you that in 4 days, your boy will be a father. Which you already know. You already know that because I said it in 129, but I just had to say it again. That's what I've been doing. We've been getting the house ready and it's an exciting time because I feel like I will be spending more time doing that to be able to get here. I said to myself on the way to starting this Patreon and everything, I want to kind of, give it a break. But then I was like, nah, I got a lot to say. It's a lot of things I could be saying. It's a lot of things I could be doing. And I really got the inspiration from my man KB. He called me the other day getting ready for his show, and he had to drop a gem on me. And he said, he said, Coach, my boy TJ, if you're listening to this podcast, TJ, appreciate you. He said, my boy TJ hit me and said, hey, man, where's Dyke's podcast? I ain't seen it. I listened to it. I ain't seen it. And KB called me and said, hey, you never know who you're ministering to. God gave you a talent. Use it. Don't worry about the money. I felt him, though. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about who's watching. Don't worry about who's listening. Use the talent that the Lord gave you, because you might be ministering to somebody. And I said to myself, before the new year dropped, I said, could that mean that I would be podcasting again when the new year came? Yes, that's what it meant. I got to get back on that consistency, man. I got to get back on that consistency. So to KB, appreciate the gem. To TJ, man, this episode I want to dedicate to you as well. Thank you for telling KB that, which got back to me, which let me know that my voice is needed. Shout out to Trey Douglas. Shout out to Trey Turner III. Shout out to Aiden Randall. Shout out to the class of 2025. I'm back and I'm ready to podcast.
Habakkuk 2:2-3 says, And the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. You do what you do for yourself to prove you can do it for others. Even though the year of perfect vision needed corrective lenses, your vision was never out of focus. You remained still. You remained determined. Kobe said, the Mamba mentality is the attention to detail and the level of commitment. Run your race because you got time. Keep the momentum. Believe in your story, a creative story. Remember, never stay comfortable while trusting the process. Be innovative in your 720 hours. There will be stumbling blocks. You just keep pushing. Most importantly, what's next? Continue to drop.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday?
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
If you've been following me on this journey, you know that I said that this episode would be a triple entendre. At least the title of this episode would be a triple entendre, because the very first episode I did of the What's Next podcast was entitled A New Beginning. It dropped January 1st, 2019, 3 years ago. And I thought that title would be befitting for this episode because it's a new beginning for me. It's a new beginning for my church. And it's a new beginning for all the What's Next podcast listeners. I was in the hood yesterday. I was in Acres Homes. Went over there to my mother-in-law's crib. This is the second, by the way. This is the first going into the second. So this is Saturday. And Houston, Texas, I want to be delicate with what I'm going to say. But when you have a platform, you got to say what you got to say. For those of you that know and have been following my journey here with the What Next podcast, you know that I told you that I was a devout Christian. I went to church, I go to church 4 times in a month's time. 4 times 52, right? 52 weeks in a year. 50 times 4 is 200. 2 times 4 is 8. So that's 208 times a year that I go to church every week. Again, I want to make sure that I'm absolutely careful in how I approach this topic or whatever. So, in my church, we're doing going into the new year, we always do this 21-day fast, right? And in 2021, the last week of 2021, I was thinking, what is my fast going to be this year? Am I even going to fast? What do I want to fast? What do I want to even do if I fast? And at first I said to myself, it was going to be social media. I was going to let go of social media for 21 days. But then I said to myself, I don't know. Because where some people see social media as a crutch, as a hindrance, I see it as an advantage. I see it as an opportunity to extend myself further than I could without, social media. So I said to myself, my 21-day fast is going to be fast food. I'm going to let it go for 21 days. So I went on to social media after I had that Sonic patty melt, and it was trash. It was terrible. And I'm a Sonic guy, but that patty melt was terrible. They might as well shelf that. Let that go. I'm lucky. Luckily, it's a limited time, but the 21-day fast thing comes from my church, Hope City, and everybody who follows this podcast knows that I go to Hope City. So I was in the hood on the first of the new year, and my man hit me. He hit my line. He said, PJ's done. We talked really loosely. He said, PJ's done. I said, nah, not possible. He said, check your email. I checked my email. I listened to the video, and I thought about when Malcolm X found out that Elijah Muhammad wasn't who he said he was. I thought about that scene in that movie. It's so real that I bought that movie to play this.
Plant my seed in fertile soil. It is only
John Ross Dyke I, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next
My faith
podcast.
has been shattered in a way I can never fully describe. Every second of my 12 years with Mr. Muhammad, I had been ready to lay down my life for him. The thing to me that is worse than death itself is betrayal. You see, I could conceive death, but I couldn't conceive betrayal. Not of the loyalty which I had given to the Nation of Islam and to Mr. Muhammad. During the previous 12 years, if Mr. Muhammad had committed any crime punishable by death, I would have said and tried to prove that I did it to save him. And
John
I would
Ross
have
Dyke I,
gladly gone to
founder
the
of
electric
Still
chair in
Visionary
Mr.
Inc. and
Muhammad's
creator of the What's
place.
Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Houston, Texas. As soon as I walked out of my mother-in-law's house, that's how I felt. Can I be real with you for a second? We all fall short of sin. We all do. In fact, I wrote that in a poem, and I'll drop that video sometime in the new year of me doing the poem in the fourth quarter last year. We all fall short of sin. And being black, you hear about the mega church. There's a misnomer about it. Mega churches. And then you hear some of the black pastors that are falling victim to adultery. You don't know what to think. At Hope City, man, it was one of those things where it was different from the black church. There wasn't a lot of hanging your head and adultery talk in our regular sermons. It was all about hope and uplifting and looking at things from the brighter side. The optimistic, some should say. But when I got that news, I was like, man, I said, nah, it just could not be. It could not be. So much so that when I watched the church service today, and I'm a big fan of Pastor Daniel Groves. I think that he is phenomenal. He's trifecta in that pulpit. He can sing, he can play the acoustic guitar, he can preach his ass off. Pardon my French, but when I saw him on stage today and he said what he said, it put tears to my eyes. reading the comments in the chat, man, I can only pray for Pastor Jamie, man, because, you know, it's a lot of pressure that goes with a platform as big as Hope City. You know, I said about in Shakar Richardson, I said to y'all last year, I said, yo, when you smoke weed, it's just a difficult drug to kick. So I know about where I came from and what stopped me from smoking weed. I know what stopped me. And so I said, if you got a platform, you got to take care of it. So I say all that to say, I pray for Pastor Jeremy. I pray for his family. It's tough. It's tough, man. It's tough. And I pray to Jesus Christ himself that I never fall victim to that, because I know what I represent. I know what I try to represent. And if it ever shattered, how could I look at myself in the mirror? You see, and I don't know why it's so difficult to kind of, you know, because I was left dumbfounded, because we all know that men sin. But at Hope City, I don't know if I thought that Pastor Jeremy was above that. Now, I didn't think that he was necessarily above it, but I just thought that the way he uplifted family and some of the sermons during the year, I just thought that, if anybody did it in the church, it wouldn't be him. In fact, I knew that the congregation was going and sinning. When we had the Love, Sex, and Marriage series, I know that after that, people still were doing what they do. Can't help that. Man, but, I pray for the Foster family. I pray for the Gross family, that now that they've been identified as interim pastor at Hope City, that people engulf them, embrace them. And I hope that Hope City, we can get to the next level. We can get to the silos. Listen, man, I've been going to Hope City for about 7 years now. I joined during Hope City at the movies, and this is a free ad, but if you ever want to see a different style of church, Hope City at the movies would be decent. It's nice. Yeah, man. I just pray for Pastor Jeremy. I pray for his family. That's it, man.
Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Dear John, the iconic legend Quincy Jones said, "To know where you came from makes it easier for you to get where you're going." Sean Diddy Combs said, "Everyone has challenges and lessons to learn. We wouldn't be who we are without them." If 2018 and the last 6 years taught you something, it's that anything is attainable with the right focus and determination. Continue to build. Continue to promote your vision. Continue to inspire creativity and make more creatives. In closing, Nas said, "No idea is original. There's nothing new under the sun. It's never what you do, but how it's done. The first chapter of your vision's movements is done. However, you're still a visionary. Peace and blessings. John Ross."
So, Houston, Texas, man, you know, I'm a big music connoisseur. And a big part of this episode, man, is because I've been following his moves. I've been following Nas's moves, and I just been watching how he's grinding and his dedication. Even in fact, on the Magic EP LP, his last track on the Magic LP is called Dedicated. I Feel Dedicated. And it's a few songs that are on my mind, right? It's a few songs. The first one being this. No, yeah. The Truth by Nas. Every year when the ball drops, I do this thing where I go back to Nostradamus and I play A New World. And, you know, after hearing what I heard about church the other day, Testify. Those 3 records are on my heart and my mind. Testify. I just feel motivated and I feel inspired by Nas and everything he's doing at 48 years old. I feel inspired. You know, I said that in episode 129, but I feel inspired by Nas, man, because he's just grinding, y'all. He's just grinding. I feel inspired by him, right? His music is just motivating. His moves are motivating. And I just pray that I can get 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6 listeners to the What's Next podcast be as engulfed in me as I am in Nas.
Well, basically, if at the end of this conversation, people can take the concept of really just figuring out what you love in life and then figuring out a way to monetize it, and then enjoying the journey. That's really what I would love if people can walk away with that. You know, just life is really too short to be doing anything you don't love. So the first thing is to figure out what you love, what sparks joy.
Right.
And then the second thing is to figure out how to make money off of it. There's really no excuse to not make money off of something you love to do. There's so many ways to monetize. So
Houston, Texas, that is a clip from episode 64 of my podcast that I shot in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And this is part of the real reason why I said to myself, you've taken enough breaks. Now you got to figure out how to do the podcast, even if, and I've said this before, even if you don't have a guest, you still got to figure out how to come in here and talk for 30 minutes at least. The maximum 30 minutes at most, the maximum 30 minutes. You got to come in here and talk. And I realized to myself, I was thinking about this podcast, 129 episodes. And when the pandemic hit, I took the podcast over the phone. I would not quit. You should not quit. I would not quit. And this was one of the episodes that I did over the phone. I called my homegirl in LA and I said, I need to talk to you. So when we get around to everything, right, the new format of the podcast is I'm going to come and I'm going to give you about, for free, about 20 to 22 minutes for free. Total. If you like what you hear, you should go to my Patreon page and you should become a patron. I have 2 tiers. One tier is $7. That's the Still Visionary Inc. Patreon, the SVI Patreon. And the next Patreon package is $25. That's the What's Next podcast Patreon. Either way, either Patreon, you'll get the full episode. They just have different perks. On the What's Next podcast Patreon, you get everything, all access, all videos. Every time I press the record button, I'm going to keep it all. You get to watch it all. We'll interact. We'll do things differently. Every one of my patrons that becomes a patron of the What's Next podcast, of the Still Visionary podcast, will be on this podcast. We're going to sit, we're going to vibe, we're going to talk, we're going to chill, we're going to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate you just like you're celebrating me and putting your money in my pocket. That sounds bad, but I just appreciate it. So I'm going to have 2 tiers to the What's Next podcast. Well, I'm going to have 2 tiers to my Patreon. And my patrons will be celebrated. And I just think it's time, man. Like Sandra said, find out what you love to do and find out how to make money doing it. And listen, I appreciate TJ and his words. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. But, I've been doing this podcast for a while now. I'm locked and loaded. I'm ready. This is what I do. You know what I mean? And if not now, when? If not now, when? If not now, when? Right? So as we move forward into that platform, right? As we move forward into that platform, I'm still going to hit you over the head with podcasts like this when I'm in the crib, I'm chilling. But, you know, it being a new year, I could not be here. I just couldn't do it. You know, Houston, Texas, you know, today's January the 3rd. On January the 7th at 10:30 a.m., I'll be letting you know if I'm having a girl or a boy. It's getting real. And I'm excited for it. You'll get to meet them. They'll be on the podcast. Just like Will did Jaden. I'm going to do my youngin' like that too. Going back to school tomorrow, man, and I want to wish all the graduates of class of 2022 a successful second semester of your senior year. Go and get what you want to get, man. If you're not in private school, if you're in public school, if you're in the public school sector, this is the last time that you will go to school for free. So seize the moment. If you're watching this, whoever's watching this, make sure that you tag a senior in the class of 2022 and tell him, Coach Dyke, John Ross Dyke the first. Tell him,
John Ross Dyke the first, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Tell them that I said seize the moment. Find out what they want to do and go get it. Stay dedicated to it. This is a new beginning too. Houston, Texas. You already know what's next for me. January the 7th, I become a father again. You know, I do what I do for myself to prove that I could do it for others. The Patreon's coming soon. I pray for Hope City. I pray that we can make it through this. I pray to all my fathers out there. God's watching you, God got you, and God bless. And I'll see you soon. Peace and blessings.
Feel like 95. Chicken cooking, that bowling is a hobby. And I'm wildin' in my wallies, and my valleys, and my valleys. More way get you more wet. Nah, that's just the money. Push the words and kiss it. I saw the sign like Ace of Spades. That Ace of Spades get cracked me like cheers to the money guy.
John Ross Dyke the first, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
I see you, dog. 5 bottles, 1 dick. Why I need some
John Ross Dyke the first, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Get off that high ass hussy. This a private party. Been on my dick too long. Your breath on private party. You gon' be nice and naughty. These walls on priceless Audi. It's the uppercut. Fuck us up. Over and done. Overdose. Yes, we did it again. Sipping with no remorse. We gon' do it again. And we gon' do it again.
What we doing again?
The most.
John Ross Dyke the first, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. John Ross Dyke the first, founder of Still Visionary Inc. and creator of the What's Next podcast, dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.